Hey, hi, welcome to episode 2. And today we'll practice a product design question as well. My name is Krish and I'm a product manager. So let's get into it. Today we would be talking about designing a app or a service which is specifically for product group travel, a product for group travel. So let's get into it. As always, before getting or jumping into the solution itself, I would always like to ask the interviewer a couple of key questions around clarifying the situation. Why are we doing this? Who are we building this for? What's the budget? Stuff like that. So here's a high level sort of like assumptions which we are going to make around the why part. To begin with, is it an existing travel company? Is it something which we are adding as a new service? Should it be part of an ecosystem or is it like a standalone application? We're going to also assume that it's going to be for the North American or the US market. And time to build is 1 year, budget and resourcing is figured out, so we don't need to really worry about it. Now, in terms of like from the business standpoint, why? Making an assumption, travel is the total addressable market for travel is huge, which means the potential for this kind of service is huge. People across the world like to travel throughout the year, which makes it a really sort of like an interesting space to be in. At the same time, travel is also something people do for work and for pleasure, which adds that added benefit in terms of like not only focused on one persona or one industry, but we can spread into B2B or B2B to C or directly B2C, right? Business to customers. So that's at a high level in terms of like why we are doing this and making or listing down some of the assumptions which we are making here today. Now, getting into the next part, which is as I always like to do, starting with the users itself. Who are my users and why, like what are some of their pain points? So starting with users, taking some time to think through it, what I think what I have come up with so far is three main categories. One, in that B2B, which we talked about, right? So corporate customers, many companies like to arrange like a group travel for a team event, or, as we are marching towards being remote first, many companies are adapting to this new way of working, which is, meeting at least once a quarter or, once every 6 months and traveling and, planning for this entire journey is super difficult for a really huge team. So that's our first segment. Second is individual families or friends traveling together as a group, right? It still is very huge market, and it definitely is not an easy thing to travel or plan with a group, right? For a group. I myself remember when, traveling in a group versus just me or my family, it's completely different and it adds so many different variations, so many complications. So that's another consideration. And then finally, solo travelers who are trying to be part of a group. So they do not have a group, but they do not like to travel alone as well. So they want to be a part of group. So these are the high level users which I can think of. Now, typically thinking of a user journey, right? In terms of traveling, what does a typical user journey look like? And I'm sure all of us have been there, starting with an idea or a specific time to travel, or a place to travel, which we start with, right? We start to planning, we start researching the place, we create a rough first draft of the itinerary, first draft of the itinerary, get an approval, be it from the group or your family, and start to make bookings, go travel, and then share and enjoy. Today's agent date, like, without sharing, is it even a trip on social media? So, with that user journey in mind, I think next, what I want to do is list down some of these user needs, right? Based on this journey. So, from the user needs criteria, what I think of is, you know definitely travel is associated with having memorable experience, right? Folks want to enjoy, share, relax, and this is true both in corporate or one-to-one kind of settings. People want to take away the hassle of planning in a group travel specifically because that's the core crux of this discussion. It's again, as I mentioned, right? You need to account for a lot of different folks. You need to account for multiple different scenarios. If you're traveling with kids, if you're traveling with pets, all of that, right? So people want to take away the hassle of planning, the booking, take away all the stress basically, which is around planning a trip. Next, thinking about like considerations such as budget, compare different options, being able to customize the itinerary, all these are top user needs. And then finally, a platform where all of this is well aligned, right? Reservations, booking, experiences, stay, travel. So without having to go into multiple different places, now I can sort of like sit down and enjoy the experience of traveling and not be worried too much. So now that we have identified user needs, next what I want to do is I want to take 1 minute to just list down a couple key different fe- uh, features or users which we have come up with, and try and prioritize these users, right? So I'm going to look for a prioritization framework, and go from there. So in terms of prioritization, let's stick to our classic product prioritization framework, where we are looking to discuss different features, but also we are also looking to see how we can choose what we really want to build. So with that, let's get into it. So in terms of like lists which we have so far, a few considerations which I want to make, right? Travel industry itself is pretty stagnant. It's pretty saturated at the moment. So a couple different considerations. I want to see like, what is our USP, our unique selling point going to be, right, in our offering. I'm going to make sure that, how do we account for reach, frequency, use of the product which we are trying to build. And then finally, just a rough guess on like what does the average revenue per user look like. As a business, we definitely need to make sure how do we balance user needs versus staying profitable, right? So with that, let's get into this. So we have reach, we have impact, and then I'm going to just write around the level of efforts needed to build this initiative, and in coordination with what the USP is looking like. So with that, taking a look at the users which we have so far. So one is the corporate users. Second is the individual family or friends group. And our third set of users is, solo travelers who are trying to be part of a group. And this could be a couple as well, anyone honestly. Now, in terms of reach, right? Looking at prioritization from like low, medium, and high, the overall corporate users, the reach is going to be, I want to say, in this case, medium. There are a lot of like tools out there helping these corporate customers. In terms of impact, I still think that the impact is medium here. Again, because to get into this space, you need to really have a good customer base. You need to prove that you are a company that works. And level of effort could be high to prove that USP or to build a application which is able to handle um, use cases such as that of a corporate customer. Now, in terms of individual friends and family, I think the overall reach is high. Families, friends across the globe, as I mentioned, are looking to travel year along. And there are multiple different trips which roll up under this, right? Be it a road trip, be it a beach vacation, be it a ski trip. So year along, depending on what season you are, you can take a different trip. The impact is definitely going to be high depending on what we try to do, as well as the level of effort needed to create a product in this sense could be low to medium. I don't want to say low. At the same time, in terms of unique selling propositions, right? We need to make sure that how do we, again, there are competitors out there, be it TripAdvisor or Airbnb. So we need to really differentiate on how can we sort of like offer that value. Finally, in terms of like solo travelings, trying to be part of the group, this I want to say the reach could be low. Typically, solo travelers would just like to, do their own thing. They do not like to be part of a group unless they are seniors. So solo travelers are reason traveling solo because they like to do their own thing. Again, in terms of impact, I do think that we would be able to offer very limited value here, and the level of effort still is going to be between low to medium, but let's assume it's similar to medium, right? So with this prioritization framework, I think looking at the overall factors which we have, right? I want to prioritize the individual friends and family, particularly because it looks like a promising segment. It looks like the reach is going to be really high, the impact is going to be really high, whereas the level of effort or the USP is limited. So with this prioritization, let's get into some of the solutions which we can think of, right? Um, I did some homework and I'm going to start with these three key solutions which I have so far in mind, right? So Travel Buddy is going to be an end-to-end platform where you can define multiple roles, define a budget, pick a destination of choice, and then you get paired with a travel rep and work with them to create and sort of like an end-to-end itinerary, right? The itinerary is customizable. There could be multiple preferences in terms of like food restriction, the type of activities they're trying to do. For example, if it's a beach vacation, snorkeling, scuba diving, depending on what members of the group want to do, we can select those preferences and then plan an itinerary accordingly. This also gives an personal touch to the vacation. As I mentioned before, like the biggest thing in any vacation is to be able to um, create a memory. So in this case, a travel, having a rep with a paired with a travel rep is going to be crucial. Also, they might have the option to upsell and have a local travel agent travel with them, who is local, who is maximizing the trip experiences, right? So taking them to the culture, taking them to the food, taking them to those authentic places. It really sort of like, again, goes back to that realm of like being able to deliver a memorable experience. Next, this is more like a Gen Z travel experience, right? So thinking about like, how do we tap onto AI to create this interface and giving options of multiple itineraries. Again, as an input, you take certain parameters such as location, time, number of group members, and then you create that itinerary. AI takes into consideration and options within a budget. So these are going to be like AI-driven recommendations. Users either make an itinerary booking from their own, or they can hire an agent through this service to make it happen, right? One thing to add here is again, like because we are talking about AR, is there an option here to sort of like experience the place before even they go, right? So if they're trying to go, say, to a beach vacation, put on an sort of like an AR VR goggle set to experience the place and see if they want to go, right? So this is yet another feature in this industry. And then finally, the third one is a travel marketplace where we post multiple different itineraries, right? It's a marketplace where there are sellers, including hotels, airline industries, agents, all of these, and they're posting their unique packages, they're posting their multiple itineraries. Users get to pick an itinerary and then go from there, right? Um, so these are the high-level solutions in this specific scenario. Now, going back to our user needs, right? Being able to check these boxes, at the same time looking at our prioritization exercise, I do think, while these all three applications are very coherent and meeting the needs of like this individual family and friends, I do think the travel buddy option is the most unique one. And the reason behind it is Travel Buddy accounts for multiple different users. Travel Buddy gives these multiple different users different roles where they can sort of like come in and they can contribute towards the overall decision making of the process itself, right? They can also contribute between the budget or certain activities or restaurants to pick, right? So all in all, I think Travel Buddy is a great option in this case, and it really gives customers an ability to um, get that memorable experience, get that personalized experience, while it's still driven with the sort of like in travel wrap. It sort of maximizes your chance to have a genuine trip. So next, what we'll do is we'll look at some of these metrics to see how we can go from here, right? Or how we can track the success of this particular solution. Okay, cool. So in terms of metrics, one, we definitely need to be able to track user engagement. We want to see like, how many users are we getting, number of active users, what's their session duration, how frequently are they using, all those metrics. Second, we want to see or gauge like user satisfaction. How satisfied are they using our how satisfied are they using our product? What is the total overall NPS, CSAT scores, tapping on stuff like that. The next thing, which is more about monetization, I care about conversion rates. Out of those customers who have looked up these itineraries, formed the itineraries, how many of those customers have converted? And finally, also looking at repeated users, right? Out of those users, how many have actually come back and tried us for a different service, also have, referred us, so pass along that referral, all these different scenarios. So yeah, so that was at a high level how we build or would go about, building a product for a group travel. To quickly summarize, we always start with assumptions. Why we are trying to do this, what is the core USP, trying to understand the different scenarios in terms of like where we dealing. The next set is understanding the overall market space, how saturated it is, what can we do, what are the different services which we can offer. Then we briefly went into the users. What does the user journey look like when it comes to group travel? Then we identified a couple different user needs at a very high level. And then we went into prioritization considerations. We prioritized one of the users, and then we went into solutions in terms of like what really do we want to build for these users. Finally, we talked about some of these metrics in terms of like user engagement, conversion rate, repeated users, and all of that. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this conversation and looking forward to the next episode. Thanks. Bye.